Good afternoon, everybody. It is noon Eastern. We're here on Saturday with the main man, Alex Dunlap at RosterWatch on Twitter. Alex, we're about, 48, 50 hours away from being in the flesh down there in Mobile for the Senior Bowl. Oh, man. Just this time of the year, I just talk about it every show now. You just get this little feeling. You're getting through all these evaluations. You're starting to actually put names to faces, faces to names, athleticism. It's all there. It's all right in front of us. The next 2-3 months is going to be fun. How the hell are you doing this fine Saturday?
I'm fired up, dude. I'm getting out of here to leave for Mobile tomorrow morning on Sunday. Just getting there a day early to get a little fishing trip in before the week kicks off. But yeah, man, I'm excited. It looks like I know, Cody, you said you don't want to freak yourself out by looking at the weather too early, but man, the weather looked bad to start, but it's starting to look like it's clearing up a little bit. It looks like tomorrow we're gonna have tomorrow on Sunday it's gonna be thunderstorming, but it looks like Monday and Tuesday have cleared up, and then we only have Wednesday and Thursday where there's slight chances of rain. And, it's not showing thunderstorms. So if it just rains a little bit, it's fine, man. It's always going to be a little bit rainy during that week in that part of the world, and if you can just dodge some of those showers, we should hopefully get some dry practices, but I'll knock on wood.
I was going to say, let's knock on some wood, because when you brought it up, I was listening to one of your shows with Trashman the other day, and you're like, yeah, man, pack your rain gear. I was like, Don't even.
Cody, you always got to pack your rain gear, but it doesn't mean you're going to use it, man. But better safe than sorry.
Got to pack ahead, but yeah. I mean, I'm excited as we were last year. Last year's obviously my first year going down there. Year 12th will be this year.
Yeah, my first year is 2012, and so thankfully, I've been doing this tour, with the Senior Bowl, Combine, and then the Pro Days every year since 2012. Unfortunately, we got swindled out of, what was that, the 2021 Combine that they didn't have. Yeah. So my streak for that one ended with that. But I guess I still have it, just with a little asterisk. I mean, nobody got to go that year. So, but yeah, dude, excited to be back. The Senior Bowl is always a big deal, man. It's the week where you can really, you have your thoughts about these guys, and a lot of times it just takes kind of seeing them in person and seeing how they match up against some of the other best play. I mean, people say, oh, there's, because we live in the dynasty world, right? And people care so much about breakout age and so much about how, whether or not these players were, eligible as juniors, and they didn't come out as juniors. And that's a big thing that people look at. And it kind of gives a little bit of kind of makes people feel like the Senior Bowl is a little bit of guys that are second tier. And I mean, a lot of times that kind of is the case. But then again, it's like a lot of times you have guys coming out of there like the Justin Herberts of the world and the Josh Allens and the Aaron Donalds and these kind of players that, end up being just super high first round picks. Eric Fisher really helped his stock there. For us in fantasy, this is, I mean, I just think back, I'm like, what an early lead we had on guys like, not even account like the super big hits, like the Cooper Kupps and the Deebo Samuels and these kinds of players who we were in on the Antonio Gibsons. That was just one that was a mega hit. But you can also think like back to like 2012. I remember Doug Martin was there. Nobody was talking about Doug Martin at all. He was a guy that we had a lot of in Dynasty that was pretty valuable for a long time. Got to see guys like Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins. As you go through it, there's just so many of these guys that you look back and, I mentioned Deebo, you mentioned Cooper Kupp, but there's also these other, I mean, you forget like Baker Mayfield was there. Dallas Goedert was at the Senior Bowl. Zay Jones, Daniel Jones, Terry McLaurin, just these kinds of guys that aren't necessarily on people's radar who, for whatever reason, stayed in college through their senior seasons and kind of get left to the dust pile for a lot of the dynasty community. You can go see these guys, go see them live. Last year, Cody, I know you and I left out there super big on Dameon Pierce. We left there super high on Christian Watson. Those are helpful things, getting to see these guys live and being able to sort of kind of get the word out first, and being able to have that conviction going through this whole process when other people haven't seen them live and haven't seen them do it. it's a distinct advantage. I wouldn't be doing it for 12 years in a row if this didn't offer a distinct advantage. It costs a lot of money to get there. It takes a lot of time away from your family. So, yeah, man. But the bottom line is, it's still just a ton of fun, dude, to get to go down there and hang out with everybody and talk a bunch of balls. So I'm super pumped, man.
There's only a few months out of the year. Like, these are the few months where, there's actual communication and networking between everybody. We'll meet and talk for these couple months in person, and then when the season's around, it's like nobody talks to anybody.
You go back down in the fucking bunker, dude. Yeah,
you go back down and go in the bunker. But like that's what's fun. It's about the networking, but it's also about friendships, building these friendships between companies, as well as, like you said, finding the prospects. And even if the Senior Bowl, it's like, oh, they're seniors. Maybe in the Dynasty front, people are like, nah, push them out of here. They're seniors. I don't even want to talk about them. But the fact of the matter is, we're going to talk about today 5 guys that we want to watch going into the Senior Bowl next week. And some of the guys going in last year that we kind of were interested in and to find out more about. I remember going in last year, Dameon Pierce was a guy that was talked about in question. Why is he coming here? Because he didn't do a lot on the field. And Jim Nagy's like, hey, he's going to surprise you. So we watched for him. Rachaad White going in, 23 years old. We were a fan of him going in. He comes out. Those are 2 guys that make the All-Senior Bowl roster for us. Christian Watson. And what do all 3 of these guys have in common? They did something in year 1 in the NFL, and they were fantasy viable. So when you're playing Dynasty, it's not always about, drafting the 20-year-old, 21-year-old. These guys that are 23, 22 and a half, 23, small school, etc. they're worth their weight in gold when you can get them in the 14th, 15th, 16th round of Dynasty startups going over the summer, when nobody knows who they are, and you do, because you pay attention, you stay tapped in, and go to the Senior Bowl, listen to people that go to the Senior Bowl, things like that. You definitely can't overlook it.
Do you remember what an old rookie Cooper Kupp was? Would you like to have him in Dynasty? Over the course of these last few years, it's like it's been really awesome having Cooper Kupp on literally every single Dynasty team. It's been a lot of fun. So yeah, man, it's people say, what? Like, he redshirted, then he played for 5 years in college. He'll turn 20. What did Cooper Kupp turn 25 at some point during his rookie season? Either turned, I think he might have turned 20. Like, he was one of the guys that everyone hated. But go out there, you're like, I don't give a shit. Like, it does not matter to me. I've seen it. I absolutely know what's coming. I know what's coming. Like Deebo Samuel, Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, the most dominant Senior Bowl weeks I've seen out of any player. I'm just like I know this is coming. Mm-hmm. So yeah, man, it's an important part of the process. And like we said, for you and guys like you and I, Cody, who just love football and just eat and breathe this stuff, it's like it's just a hell of a lot of fun too.
I love it. So let's jump in to what we're here for. We're here to talk about 5 guys that we want to watch. We've went through the evals on most of these guys, and we want to let the people know who we're going to be looking for next week when we get down there, who we're going to be interviewing, who we're going to be trying to dig deeper into. So I'm going to start out with you, Alex, first. Who is one of your guys that you want to watch going into next week in the flesh?
Well, look, I mean, my first one will just be kind of easy. I mean, I'm based out of, not in Austin, but outside of Austin, and just outside Austin in the Texas Hill Country. And, I cover the Texas Longhorns pretty closely, right? I watch these guys. I chart every play by every player, every single game. So Roschon Johnson is who I'll talk about. First, the running back out of Texas. First thing I'll say is NFL scouts are going to love him, because NFL scouts do love him for a lot of reasons. But starting out, man, he's just a guy who you want on your team. He's a guy that you want in your locker room. Steve Sarkisian calls him his lieutenant. He's a team captain. He is a guy that Bijan Robinson completely looks up to and kind of considers like a big brother that's helped shape him into the player that he is. Roschon was an ex-quarterback coming out of high school. He made the move to running back, I think, mainly just after one season, just one season. But he has that sort of quarterback's mentality for the game of football, that kind of quarterback's leadership. It's like you've had these young kind of quarterbacks come through, and these Casey Thompsons, these Hudson Cards, this year Quinn Ewers. You've had these guys come through that have kind of needed to develop on their own into these sort of leaders that the team can really, it can galvanize the team, right? with that sort of void of leadership, Roschon is the face of the team. It sounds weird to say, but he kind of is, right? If you look at it internally. And so you got to, and the other thing, he's smart as hell. He's on all the Big 12 honor rolls and things like that. If Bijan Robinson wasn't around, Roschon Johnson would have been a high volume, super productive running back for Texas. I mean, think about this, Cody. I was trying to get to the bottom of this last year at the Combine. You were standing right next to me asking Keontae Ingram why he left. When I know that for damn sure the reason why he left, it's like not only is he an injury away to playing time because of Bijan Robinson, he knew damn well if anything happened to Bijan Robinson, Roschon's going to get all the work because Roschon's that good. He can catch. He's powerful between the tackles. He's good inside zone. He's pretty good outside zone. I think he's a better inside zone runner. They do run some man gap kind of trap sort of power stuff for him as well. And they've also had that wildcat thing, which wasn't always the most successful. I always thought that if they're going to run that wildcat with Roschon, they can't just have Roschon hold it and run it every single time. You know, they need to let him be a quarterback like he used to be, and add a little bit of a wrinkle there. Regardless, Roschon was used in all kinds of different ways. He was basically 38% snap participant this year. It's kind of like 60% Bijan, 38% Roschon Johnson, about 7% Keelan Robinson, who was the kind of gadget back. And the reason why those numbers add up to more than 100, of course, is because Texas did run a bunch of two running back sets because they wanted to get Roschon and Bijan on the field at the same time. The final thing I'll say about Roschon, besides the fact that just a good runner, really good kid, fast. I mean, you look at the internal testing from the team, you don't realize that Roschon at his size is one of the fastest players on the whole team for their 40 times that they've done, internally there at Texas that they have posted there at Moncrief. So I expect him to test really well. I expect him to test explosively. I expect him to have a good week at the Senior Bowl. I expect him to impress the living bejesus out of scouts and the media alike with his personality. And I think he's going to come out of that thing. He's going to come out of that thing with his draft stock elevated. I mean, there were scouts that were telling me back in November that I'm going to be surprised by how close Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson are drafted together, because they said, regardless of how good Bijan is, it only takes one team, right? And as we do our mocks, we'll talk about this a lot, Cody. But this guy's saying, who knows what people are going to do about running back? I don't see him getting past 29. Are the Eagles, is their last pick in the first at 29?
Well, yeah, I mean, depends on what they do this weekend, but yeah, it's going to be right there.
It's projected to be right there at the end, right? Okay, so it would be hard to see him get past there, right? But I think what this dude's telling me is like, Roschon has a real chance to be a day 2 pick, and you get that guy with day 2 draft capital. It's gonna be really interesting, especially given the fact that I believe. How old is Roschon's only going to be 22 this season.
Yeah, turns 22 this weekend.
Yep. So he'll be 22 for his entire rookie year. So that's my deal with Roschon. I'm not really excited. These other guys I want to see to learn more about. With Roschon, I'm excited to go there and I know everything about him, and I'm excited to go and see the world find out about Roschon Johnson.
Yep, and we've had conversations about Roschon before, and I will say the one thing is I didn't realize, I guess to your level, you said that he has the internal speed testing and stuff. The one of the notes I made was hyper acceleration when you get him the opportunity. Like, you can just tell when he touches the ball, he's ready to go, and he's bringing power behind him. That's one thing I did notice, and I really like about him. I comped him to like a Jalen Samuels plus. Jalen Samuels I think is a little slower, not as much of a powerful running back as I think Roschon can be, but I think with the amount of tread on his tires and just given the opportunities, like you said, leadership in that room, I think the NFL, we've had this conversation before, but I think the NFL is just going to eat him up.
Yeah, man. He's going to be a guy that picks up steam during our time in Mobile for sure. At least that's my expectation.
All right, I'm going to start with another running back. This is another big boy at the running back position. I'm going to go with Cameron Peoples. Very interested to see what he looks like from a speed perspective, because sometimes on tape he looks like he could be a low 4.5 guy at 225 pounds. But I also think there's a world where he's a 4.65 guy. That's kind of really what I want to see, is if he can separate himself from a couple of these other running backs. Kind of reminds me of Latavius Murray, a downhill pounder that gets north and south very well. Appalachian State played with a couple other prospects that you're going to see over the next couple of years, as App State year in and year out pumps out running backs randomly throughout the draft. You can remember a few of the last ones the last couple of years. Tough runner, grinder mentality, showed great strength and awareness against an array of opponents from Texas A&M to Georgia Southern. He looks strong. He doesn't play up or down to his competition. He's just always playing consistently. I think he lacks natural agility, and that's really one of the things that worries me. He's like a one-step. It literally reminds me of Latavius Murray from taking like one-step cut upfield right now. He in open field, sometimes you can see him break away, and that's what I said. He looks like he may run a 4.45, but then other times it's like he looks like he's pulling a plow. I think he's going to be a guy that the NFL is going to like. But again, first, second down grinder from a fantasy perspective, probably not going to be the most sought after running back. Interested to see the draft capital, obviously, but I think that comes with a great day down at the Senior Bowl. Cameron Peoples, Appalachian State, 6'2", 225 pounds. Just really overall a big bruising running back is a good way to put it. And he looks lean on tape. He had a 1,100-yard season back in 2020 and then kind of tapered off since then. I really want to see if he can kind of return to form from 2020. That's kind of what I'm thinking on Cameron Peoples right now.
I think he's the oldest running back there, right? He's the oldest one. But being from Appalachian State, I've heard Daniel Jeremiah, who also went to Appalachian State, talk about him and how he's excited to see him down there. So I'll be excited to see Cameron Peoples too. All right, so for my next one, I'll talk about Rashee Rice from SMU. I currently have him as my top receiver coming into the week. I not in the class, but the top. The top at the Senior Bowl. I have a few questions about. Well, let's just talk about him first, and so Rashee Rice. He's from SMU, senior, unofficial 6'2", 203. He'll be 23 in his rookie season. Only one of three guys in this class with a breakout age 20 or below in this Senior Bowl class. So he broke out in his sophomore season. But this last year, what was it? It was he broke Emmanuel Sanders's all-time receiving yards record at SMU of 1339. He went 96 for 1355 and 10. And I mean, say what you will about it being SMU, they've actually had some pretty good receivers lately. They've had like Emmanuel Sanders, whose record he broke. Aldrick Robinson went there. People forget that Trey Quinn was ultra productive there. But of course, also we have Prochet, Cortland Sutton, Danny Gray.
Mm-hmm.
So he's had some, that's to say that he's sort of like the alpha out of those guys is pretty good. Pretty good to say. He's dominant at the catch point. He's a hands catcher. His ball skills look to me to be elite. In a class. I've talked to Trashman about this, and Cody, I forgot. I listened to one of your shows. I forget which one it was, but you were kind of saying this too. It's like a lot of these wide receivers this year are a little bit short. Like they're kind of the same. Not short, but not a lot of these.
They're all right there.
5'11" to 6 foot, maybe some 6'1" dudes. It's going to elevate guys like Quentin Johnston, I think, this year for that reason. And you and I will talk a whole lot about that and this whole Jackson Smith and Jigba just slander that's going on right now. But look, I think that Rashee Rice, he actually plays kind of big. He's not a super BMI kind of guy, but he is really good at the catch point. He's got awesome contact balance. He's a really good blocker in the run game. He's not a one-trick pony that can only operate as somebody who's going to be just a great pass catcher who can literally take over football games for you. He's a this guy's got a well-rounded skill set, dude. He's a Biletnikoff Award semifinalist. I do wonder a little bit about his speed. I do have some contacts that, within the SMU the SMU athletic department who've told me, I'm like, because Trash Man thought he was going to run like a 4.39. I said, I called around about that. I was told by one guy who would certainly know that he thinks he can get into to the low 4.5s or maybe a 4.50. So
the low 4.5s.
Yeah. So
Fuck.
to me, that's like, I want to see if that's really kind of it with the speed. If that's it with the speed, I'm obviously not going to be as big on him as I am sort of going in. I want to see a guy who I can look at and say, yep, he's going to run a 4.46 or run a 4.47. If he gets something like that, it's going to be just fine. I think 4.50 would be just fine for him, but I'm not going to expect him to be any sort of I think there are people out there who expect him to be a little bit faster than that.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm sort of tapping the brakes a little bit on that, but I do think he's a terrific prospect. I do think he's going to go out there and show out. I want to see his speed in person, and I want to see his release package in person.
I like that, and you brought up the speed thing. I'm glad you did, because when I go through this stuff, I do like a projected 40, because we're doing the breakout finder, and before the combine we like to have numbers put out, so I have to have a projected number in there so we can run all the numbers, and I put him at 4.41, and I felt good about it. I was like, most of those numbers they're not trying to be high on them. I'm trying to be like dead nuts in the center of expectation and maybe like
I might bump
down.
it. I might bump it down if you want to be. I mean, maybe he runs a 4.41 and my guy's completely wrong.
Yeah,
but I mean,
I think that's safer though. 4.51, like I think 4.51 is much safer of expectation.
Or a 4.46 or 4.47. Right.
Yeah.
That's
I like that.
That's what I'm hoping to see. And anything better than that is just cream on top of or whatever.
That's still not terrible though, because like he's got speed on the field too. It's not like he's not slow.
Acceleration. So
he's not slow. Like you said, I love the body control and his ability to put everything. He's just a winner. He makes plays.
Mm-hmm.
What did you have like a play style comp or a comp for him? I know you guys talk about that often. I want to know who you had, because mine's kind of spicy. I talked about mine the other day on my wide receiver review show, but I want to hear yours first.
It's Bateman. He looks so much like Bateman to me, and if he runs sort of that high 4.4, sort of that same area, like I think Bateman is the comp that Trash Man originally came up with, and I usually hate Trash Man's comps, and I said, God damn it, Trash Man, that is perfect. He looks a lot like Rachaad Bateman coming out.
I like that. I like that. And the thing also is, I see him listed at 203. We have him listed at 203 on Playerprofiler. You can check that out. But also, I see a lot of places where he's 189, 190, 195. I don't know what he's going to be. That's another thing that I want to see with Rashee Rice. I had him assuming he's around the 185 to 190 pound range. The way he plays, to me, a lot of his route running reminds me of Garrett Wilson's route running, and that's spicy, obviously, because he was a top 15 pick. But that's like one thing I want to see. You remember? I mean, we were there together at the combine last year, watching Garrett Wilson and Olave run that gauntlet at the combine. Like, that's one thing I want to see, how Rashee Rice looks in those situations. And if, like you said, you have a number one right now going into the Senior Bowl, as far as the Senior Bowl receivers go, he should clearly be that guy if these expectations that we have of him hold up. I have him currently as my number 2 wide receiver going into the Senior Bowl, but I have all these guys clustered in there: Trey Palmer, Hutchinson, Rashee Rice, and Jaden Reed. I have all 4 of them close together. I'm going to talk about Trey Palmer now from Nebraska.
Well, he's also one of mine, so we can both talk about him.
Yeah, we're both got some comments on him.
Right.
I currently have him as my top receiver going in. He's gotten a more aggressive dog rating because I've done more extensive work on him from that aspect of everything, and I think he's going to be in the dog grade when that comes out late February, early March. He's going to be very high on that. 6 foot tall, 180 pounds, a complete burner, a good burst with elite speed, record holder in the 200 and I believe 100 and 200 in Louisiana, or just I can't remember which one it is. But
he was the 4-time state champion in both. Jesus. But it was his senior year that he broke like the 50-year record in the 200. So.
Unreal. The speed's there. The thing is, for me, like on tape, when you're watching it, it doesn't pop off the screen for you. It's not like, oh, this is track speed, but he can just like hit that gear and all of a sudden he's gone. Subtle route runner with great double moves and patience. I think that's one of my favorite things about him is he's just a fluid overall athlete, very patient, understanding of his body and his control. Played 3 seasons at LSU with elite dudes: Butte, Neighbors, Marshall, McMath, Chase, Jefferson. Like his breakup finder teammate score is going to be ridiculous. And then he transferred to Nebraska at 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. I think he has the abilities to dominate at the NFL level. And I think he's going to be a guy that, for me coming in, I'm going to be a lot higher on than I think consensus at this point right now. I have him comp to a faster Deontay Johnson because Deontay Johnson, from a patient standpoint, he's got some troubles holding onto the ball, having a couple drops, kind of like Deontay Johnson does. But as far as a play style comp, that's where I go with Deontay, but with speed. That's kind of where I'm leaning with Trey Palmer. But I'm very excited about him. I don't want to get too hyper aggressive from a comp standpoint with him because I think there's still a world where some of these guys that, kind of like George Pickens last year, they're almost to the level where they're past the dog. They turn into a fucking menace, and you start to worry about him a little bit. And that's kind of where Palmer is right now. He seems like he's just on the edge. But I also think it's a world where this guy could end up being like top 3 in this class. Like I think that's in his range of outcomes overall in the class.
I mean, I didn't even think as you were talking, I didn't even think about this comp, and I'm adding it to my list of comps, and it's Will Fuller. Because here's the thing. You like the speed is evident, right? The speed is evident. You saw the complete breakout season where he was able to just take over football games. I mean, say what you will about Casey Thompson up there at Nebraska. I've watched Casey Thompson very, very closely. One thing that he's not afraid to do is if he trusts a wide receiver, he'll spin that thing and just let it go and just let his guy go make a play. And if you just watch these Nebraska games, you'll see like he is consistently making plays. One thing that Trash Me pointed out that I was super surprised by was that he played a majority of his snaps in the slot. To me, it's like I'm just like, how do you keep on comparing him to all these slot wide receivers? We were live on the stream. He's like, well, he played a ton in the slot. I'm like, all the biggest plays that I've like Trash Man, that's garbage. Like, that's not true. He's like, he might play 15%. And so Trash Man's like, well, go look it up. So we went and looked it up. Of course, I mean, he was 64% of his snaps came out of the slot. So to me, it was interesting that Trash Man considered him this kind of, more like a Tyler Boyd type player. To me, like, I don't see that at all. To me, it's like a Will Fuller. Maybe I mentioned Danny Gray earlier, but he's the exact same size that Danny Gray was last year. Yeah. Maybe like a Quez Watkins type of, these fat Mecole Hardman, these super fast dudes. As you mentioned, just the uber production this year, Cody, like 35% of the team receptions, 39% team receiving yards, 53% team receiving touchdowns. And just like, we're talking about one of the fastest players in all of the Big 12 and just an undeniable home run hitter that has some chops out of the slot. He's got great open field vision. As far as his production, it's the best production final year of anybody at the Senior Bowl this season. And like I'm always talking about, like, I want to see, like, with Treylon Burks last year, the reason why I wasn't able to get off him when so many people finally were is I was like, I've seen him take over football games. Like, when you have these guys that can come in and take over football games, that says something to me. And I would just encourage anybody just to go on YouTube and just watch Trey Palmer versus Purdue in 2023. And you'll see, I mean, it was 237 receiving yards, 60 rushing yards. I think he had 2 or 3 touchdowns. My worries about him is he's a body catcher too often. He had 11 drops last year. That's too many drops. He doesn't seem like a complete natural hands catcher to me. That's where kind of the Will Fuller stuff, as you're talking, it made me think, like, he had the hands worries, but he was so fast, so dynamic, so productive. The one difference, also the open field vision. It reminds you a ton of Fuller. The one thing I will say that besides the drops and the body catches that I don't like, is he was only for a guy that's that fast and the guy that you want that with the ball in his hands in the open field that much, like, his yards after contact is not very good. He's kind of easy to take down when the first tackler gets there. And the contested catch rate, if you just look into that stuff, his contested catch rate is pretty miserable. So what I'm looking for, how he looks in those contested catches. I want to hear how the ball sounds whenever it hits his hands. I want to hear if it's a slap, whether it's and if it's that, then we're cooking with grease, man. Like, I think I'm not sure he's not my top player coming in.
Yeah.
That's gonna be Rashee Rice. I'm not even sure he's number two, but he's either 2 or 3. and the guy who's going to be the other guy that I'm slotting in, whether it's 2 or 3 initially, and these things are bound to change. You know how it goes, man. But the other guy I'll talk about next.
I love that. And that's, yeah, I have Palmer coming in, like I told you, at number 1, but it's literally, as far as the grading scale goes right now, as we enter, it's 6.8, 6.7, 6.7, 6.7. That's where the top 4 guys are for me. So they're literally back to back to back to back. So it's really not that big of a gap. But if you're listening to the show, I appreciate it. Click that like, click that subscribe button. If you are on the podcast, give us 5 stars. Tell us you hate us. Tell us you love us. I really don't give a shit, but do it. Also, underdogfantasy.com. Use that promo code Underworld. We appreciate you guys to go over there. You get a deposit match bonus up to $100, and you can go make prop picks, pick'ems, and you can join best ball drafts every single day, heading into the AFC and NFC championships tomorrow in Philadelphia and in Burrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. Underdogfantasy.com. Use that promo code Underworld. Now we'll get back to it. Alex, do you have? I took Trey Palmer as my number 4, your number 3. Do you have a number 2 guy that you want to talk about?
Yeah. So, well, Palmer counts as one for me too. Because I only brought 5 guys in here to talk about.
Right. That's right though, because I'm going to steal one of your other guys too. So we both really got 4. We're just sharing 2.
Okay, so I'll talk about Xavier Hutchinson from Iowa State, another guy who, this sort of takeover football games bar that I have, just being a guy that watches the Texas games. I've just seen Xavier Hutchinson. I've seen Xavier Hutchinson come in and just have these games where it's like every game with Xavier Hutchinson, where it's just he gets this huge volume. It's been for the last few years. He just gets such huge volume. He's 6'3". He's 205. Those, of course, are unofficial, but it's a pretty clean package with this guy outside of a few things. I mean, he broke out in his first season at Iowa State. He was the Big 12 Newcomer of the Year. Of course, he had been to JUCO for 1 year before that, but he was a Biletnikoff Award finalist this year. He's twice been named to the All Big 12 team. In 2022, he was a first-team All-American by the AP and by PFF. He's the centerpiece of the Iowa State offense after Breece Hall left. He's polished, he's clean, he's experienced. He's got an impressive size. He's got really, really good length. I'll be watching to see what his wingspan is at this thing. He's certainly going to have the biggest wingspan of any of these wide receivers, and probably one of the bigger ones in the whole. He'll have a wingspan that's close to like Quentin Johnston's, just when you look at how he's got these condor arms, good route runner. It's interesting. One of the things is and this is what I'll look for. If you look at PFF, he had a near 60% target rate against zone shells compared to only a 21.1% target rate versus man, which to me is a little bit interesting, considering he's got the big body size to where you think like this is going to be a contested catch like dog, right? Mm-hmm. He kind of isn't, man. He's a little bit more of a finesse kind of, find the spot in the zone type of wide receiver that's just so dependable though, right? And who just gets peppered with this volume. And I know Matt would call that kind of guy like an accumulator. He's famously talked about these kind of players before that have been the results of volume in their college offenses, who aren't necessarily uber explosive. I don't know where you have him projected for his 40. I probably have his like a 4.55. Something like that.
4.58.
Okay, so 4.55 to 4.58. I think that's probably good, and you can sort of see it. Like only 4.2 yards after catch per reception in 2022. His longest play in all of 2022 was just 38 yards. So he's not an explosive and dynamic playmaker really at all with the ball in his hands, but just super, super good as a guy who is just a good route runner, who's dependable. He's shown he can take over football games at the college level. To me, I could easily see him stepping into a role, an eventual role in the NFL where it's like he's not going to. It's like, let's say with the Chargers, he's not the Mike Williams. He's the Keenan Allen, right?
Yes.
I can see him being in that exact kind of role at the next level, but just a little bit bigger, a little bit lankier, a little bit more beastly, perhaps a tiny flinch a bit faster. But that kind of player, and that kind of player to me is valuable. Mm-hmm. So I want to go. I want to see his speed. I want to see how he is versus elite corners, especially in man, because that discrepancy between the target rate in man coverage versus the target rate in zone, it tells me that's a big difference. That's 3x, dude. 3x, over 3x difference. So why is that? I want to find out why. And that's one of the things that I'll be looking at this week.
And as Harry Snowman alludes to in the chat, 163 targets, 34% college target share this year, 97th percentile. That targets do not lie at Iowa State, 163. And like you alluded to, that's why I was waiting to see what your comp was going to be, because you brought up Keenan Allen. You're like, he's the Keenan Allen, not the Mike Williams. Exactly where I went with it. Adam Thielen. I think he's got a great catch radius, just like him. Separator within the first fight. You said lacks yak. I'd agree on that. He's kind of like a slower. To me, it was like just a slower lower body, like a slower gait. He just doesn't really have like that attack or the speed in the lower half. Really is what caught my eye. Does not have any yak ability, as you mentioned. And I thought he separated great within the first 5 yards, and that's kind of what makes a great route runner. He just knows how to win within the first 5 yards, and that's kind of what I liked about Xavier Hutchinson as well. And that's kind of what led me to the Adam Thielen thing. Also, just his ability to like you said, great catch radius inside the red zone as well. And you said you have him coming in top 3 as well in this class?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's – well, I mean, and Cody, the minute we get there, it could be like, holy shit, Jonathan Mingo. Like, I'm like, oh, my yes, God, I can't believe this guy. Like, I mean, it always happens every year. Yeah. Like last year with Dameon Pierce. Like last year we saw Christian – like, I wasn't big on Christian Watson going into that week of practices. Come on, dude. It's like – but, like, somebody comes. Like, Byron and I always talk about Senior Bowl. It's like Christmas. It's like their presents. You get to open up. Some of these things are big surprises that you would have never expected. So, but yeah, so going into the week, that's sort of how I have my top 3 stacked up is Rashee Rice sort of, man, it's close though. Like you, dude, it's like, but the top 3 for me, it's going to be Rashee Rice and almost in no particular order, Xavier Hutchinson and we just talked about
Palmer.
Trey Palmer from Nebraska.
So yeah, I'd agree 100%. All the grades and all these guys are all indifferent, but they're all there because multitude of things that go together. And that's the one thing that I think you're going to see going in next. And they're all different body types too, so that's an interesting thing as well. I think exactly like you mentioned though, like Christian Watson, it was like every day last year, something, and it just grew on us. Even like Jalen Tolbert really didn't do anything this year, but somebody's going to be that guy as well. And he's going to look great, and it's just not going to come through in the end. But that is Xavier Hutchinson from Iowa State. I'm going to go to the tight end position here because I can't have tight end be my favorite player. So I'm going to go Braden Willis out of Oklahoma. There's really not a lot to talk about with Braden Willis other than the fact that he just might be that dude at the tight end position that nobody talks about, nobody knows. 6'4", 235 pounds, played running back, played fullback, played tight end at Oklahoma. I really don't have any negatives on him. There's really not a lot of tape on him. And going through the tight end class here for the Senior Bowl, it's a very interesting group. Some guys are just I'm no interest in. Some guys like Luke Musgrave, who the NFL loves right now. They think he's going to run the 4.5s, 4.6s. He's an interesting one. Josh Wiley's an interesting one as well. Lighter side for Josh Wiley. But this one right here, Braden Willis from Oklahoma, 6'4", 235 pounds. He will have games with literally no stats, but his noses could likely be deep into somebody's ribcage, linebacker, defensive end, whatever it may be. Effort is the number one thing here. You can turn the tape on for him, and it's play after play after play where he's putting a linebacker on his ass. He's 45 yards downfield trying to make that last block. He's got the speed to do it, speed to get down there. He was not utilized nearly enough in the receiving game. And for a guy that was not utilized, you can see when he does get the ball, at rare times when he does get the ball, he flashes speed. And I think there's a world where he runs in the low 4.7s, high 4.6s, just based on what he showed. And at that size, it wouldn't surprise you, 235 pounds. Kind of showed some flash of Evan Ingram as far as playing in there. And I know right now that's going to seem hot because Evan Ingram had a good season, but Evan Ingram hasn't been great the last few. One of the best, if not the best run blocker in this class at the tight end position. Consistency, and he must be utilized more in the passing game, and that's really what I want to see. He's a late bloomer, but that's all right. That's what the tight end position is. It's always late bloomers that come on slow, and then boom, they're there. And I think Braden Willis is a guy this week that I think we go in, I'm thinking Jonnu. I'm thinking Evan Ingram. I'm thinking Chigo Okonkwo from last year. Somebody, he's going to be in that body type, and I think he's got big play abilities. You remember Chig last year? I think Chig ran in the 4.4s, and obviously he had games for Tennessee during the season. So Braden Willis, Oklahoma, 6'4", 235 pounds. I'm really interested to see. I know everything from the run blocking side. He's going to be on the field for NFL team, run blocking at the fullback, H-back, tight end position. Is he going to get the receiving work? That's really what I want to see this week in Mobile.
Well, and like, I mean, that's kind of what, people forget that's kind of what Ramondre Stevenson was. He would line up at that H-back and that sniffer and stuff a whole lot, man. People weren't expecting him to. I certainly wasn't, dude. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, I'm still not taking an L on it quite yet. I still don't think he's as talented as everybody else. I mean, I was looking at one of these FFPC early best balls for next year. Cody, this guy went at the 1-2 turn. I was like, what are we doing here with Ramondre? But regardless, man, like we've seen guys in that kind of role for Oklahoma be successful at the NFL level if they can learn to catch. If they're like, I'm curious about the agility numbers at the combine for him, because if these guys, even if they're a little bit slow, if they got the good agility numbers, they can catch, and they go to a team that actually likes them and wants to involve them. That's it's the kind of player that could be fantasy relevant.
Yep.
All right. So my last one here before we talk about the one that we shared, this guy's is Dontavion Wicks, and he's the wide receiver out of Virginia, unofficially listed at 6'1", 206. I think I don't know what you have the 40 time projected as. I think he's a 4.6 kind of guy. Cody, is that where you have him?
4.54 is what I kind of wrote down. He was the toughest one I think that I went through in this entire Senior Bowl at the wide receiver position.
It's the toughest I've been through too. So he's only going to be 22 this year. He broke out at age. He broke out in his junior season though, the 2021 season. And if you look at the 2021 season, you look at this guy and you say, "Holy cow, man! What are we dealing with here? This guy's good. He's got a comprehensive route tree. He has this deceptive way of changing gears. He can sink his hips. He can stop. He can start. He throws dudes off. He's got a whole lot to like about him." Then the 2022 season, you look at the 2022 stuff, it's miserable. 16% of team receptions, 19% of team receiving yards. I guess for the receiving touchdowns, 29%, that's fine. But it's a guy that he did not play strong at all last year. He lacked any kind of deep speed. He looked faster in 2021. So I don't know if he was hurt or what it was that happened. But it's like if you just look at it, he broke Herman Moore's 32-year-old single-season receiving yards record at Virginia in 2021, right? So we've seen it out of him. In that season, if you look at his yards per route run, it was 3.25. For people who don't know, that's extremely good. Like that's top 10 out of like 100, 400 and whatever qualifiers. It put him in the same class as guys like Sky Moore from last year, Drake London. Who else? Wandale Robinson, Traylon Burks, Jackson Smith and Jigba. He was ahead of Jamison Williams, Garrett Wilson, Jordan Addison, David Bell. He was 14th overall among FBS qualifiers. So, at 3.25, we do know how yards per route run is such a powerful metric for prospecting data, but also just for us, Cody. And doing the process of fantasy and making projections every week, you look at the yards per route run guys, and those guys are just the good players. Like when you're doing projections, you're just like, oh man, dude, the guys who have the high yards per route run are just the best. It's just like it's a really important metric. So, but that thing dropped all the way to 1.25 in 2022. The other thing was the drops. So he had 9 drops in 2022, which was good for a miserable 23.1% drop rate. It was tied for 4th worst on PFF among all FBS qualifiers, 4th worst. Whereas in 2021, it was just a middling kind of 8.1% drop rate, something you're pretty much okay with. So, I think you're probably fine with sub 10% drop rates. So I want to know what happened. I want to see if the Dontavion Wicks that come, and I've heard Jim Nagy talk about this, about how, this is kind of his week to come out and sort of show that this last season was a weird season. And I know Virginia, look, they changed. He had the same quarterback, but they did change coaches. They did change the system up. Virginia, of course, had a horrible tragedy that was Virginia, right? They had a horrible tragedy take place on their campus. That was in November, though, so it wasn't like that was anything that started out the season weird. I just have a lot of questions about Wicks. I actually really like him based on the 2021 stuff. I want to see how he looks and see if he looks like that on the field. And I also just straight up want to ask him what happened. So
I want to see the mental side of it. That's one of those guys that I don't really have a good grasp on him. As you said, there's a lot of things that I like and I don't like about him, but there's a lot more things that I do like about him as an NFL player. I think he plays bigger. I comped him to Michael Gallup. I liked his frame. I liked his attack on the ball. I like his focus and his awareness. And I only watched the 2022 tape. I don't go back and look at the previous years. I just don't. That's just not how I want to see what he looks like now because of things like injuries.
Have you watched 2021?
I haven't. That's what I'm saying.
Go do it, dude.
But I don't want that.
Please.
I don't. Okay, I'll do it because you asked me. But that's one thing. I don't want that to. And partly why I don't do it is because of the Devy side of things, where it's oh, this guy was so good, and it's yeah, but that's not him today. That's a year and a half ago. It's a different body type. It's a different. He might have gained 10 pounds, he lost 10 pounds, changes, whatever it may be. I want to see who the guy is, in the recent season and kind of what he's going through now. But I'll go back and watch Wicks from 2021 because I actually I thought that's why it was so hard for me, because I saw some things I hated and I saw some things I actually really loved from a 2022 tape. And I don't have him the highest. I have him, I think, coming in wide receiver 7 from this group. And it's just, we're really middling right now. But I think I mentioned it on my show the other day when I was just talking about receivers strictly. I think he has the most room to grow. There's a lot of guys that are above him that kind of can just move around, that top 4. But I think Wicks is a guy that could jump from 7 to the top, up into that conversation, be near the top.
That's the thing is Nagy talks about him like that. Yeah. And when you hear Nagy talk about that, like you mentioned about Pierce earlier, you hear Nagy talk about these guys. There's always the first dude he mentions, dudes to watch, stuff he always mentions Dontavion Wicks. And so for me, it piqued my interest. I wanted to look a little bit deeper into him. Trash Man's comp for him was Allen Robinson, which is I think a pretty good comp. But Trash Man says that. I kind of mean that in a good way and also a kind of throwing shade way, because Allen Robinson has kind of not been, you haven't known what to expect out of him. And
that's a really good comp.
My comp was Tyler Johnson. I think he plays a lot like him. A lot of the same things stylistically. He just, whenever I watched him, he reminded me a lot of him. And Tyler Johnson was the guy that I liked as a prospect. I feel like a lot of the Dynasty community loved as a prospect, and nobody understood why the NFL didn't like him. So I think stylistically, he's a little bit of an enigmatic guy in the same sort of way. And as far as the way he plays, it kind of reminds me of him. So I think that's sort of a player in the Tyler Johnson, Allen Robinson kind of mix. It's it's sort of what does Matt call him? A black box kind of prospect. Yep. We're going to find out a whole lot more about him here in the coming week.
I love it. I'm going to go to one guy at the wide receiver position. Then we're going to jump to our final guy that we're looking forward to most to watching this week at the Senior Bowl. I'm going to go to Grant Dubose, though, first. He was a late add to the Senior Bowl this past week. You're going to see late adds. Alex could probably allude to this a little better than I because he's been there so many years, but they add guys all the way up until the game, all the way up through the week. They had a TJ Pledger, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday last year, and he had one practice in, ended up, I think, scoring a touchdown in the game. So you're going to see guys continue to be added, but Grant Dubose was the guy that was added just a few days ago, 6'2", 200 pounds out of Charlotte. This guy's got a very interesting backstory, and he is a very, very fluid athlete. Very,
I haven't watched one bit of this guy. I haven't watched one bit. Yeah.
That's all right. So I want to see what and I actually, it's weird. There's only 2 guys in this entire thing that I have comp to Michael Gallup, and he's another one similar to Dontavion Wicks. I have both guys comp to Michael Gallup for play style stylistically. 6'2", 200 pounds, works back to the ball very instinctively. He makes some pretty ridiculous catches, great footwork and elite body control. I talked about this with Bijan, where I said I thought Bijan had the best understanding of what his body can do and the best understanding of what his body can do and how to use his body since Derrick Henry. When you watch Derrick Henry get the ball, it's just I know exactly where I'm going, how I'm going to do it, and where I'm going to go, and he just does it so smoothly. That's Bijan Robinson. I think Dubose has some of those traits as well, as far as understanding what he can do and how talented he can be about it. Very tough prospect to find the negative on. He's got a great backstory, not a ton of film because he was at Charlotte, but what there is at Charlotte is pretty special. He doesn't have the deepest route laboratory. library. But he'll be a fun project. I think it's going to be a guy that NFL teams are going to want on their team. He was playing JUCO back in 2019 when COVID hit. That team ended their, I can't remember the name of the school, but they ended their football program, and he ended up going back home. He's from down there, I think in Montgomery, Alabama. He worked at Walmart during COVID, and then his buddy that played quarterback at Charlotte was talking to the coaches at Charlotte, said, "Hey man, you got to give my boy an opportunity." You always hear this thing, right? "Oh, give my boy an opportunity." And they actually gave Dubose the opportunity as a walk-on. He comes in there as a walk-on, earns the scholarship, and absolutely lights the world on fire. Goes for 1,600 yards over the last 2 years. Consistency, 62 receptions, 64 receptions, 15 touchdowns over the last 2 years at Charlotte. I just want to really see what he is, because there's really not a lot of tape against a lot of decent prospects, against a lot of decent teams. His first game that he played at Charlotte was in 2021 against Duke, and it was the first time that the University of Charlotte 49ers ever beat a Power 5 school, 4 receptions, 118 yards, and 2 touchdowns in his debut at Charlotte against Duke. So Grant Dubose, very interesting prospect.
Did somebody drop out? Why they had 16. Why would they add a 17th?
I think somebody might have got hurt last week. I can't remember who it was.
Oh shit.
But Dubose, a lot of people are looking at Andre. I can't say his last name. Iosifs, whatever. I'm just throwing dart here.
Is Yosef's?
Andre Yosefs. Everyone's calling him this year's Christian Watson. I don't think so. I think you're looking at him right here. Grant Dubose, Charlotte. Nobody's going to be. We talk about this in text the other day. Nobody's going to be this year's Brock Purdy. I don't think anybody's going to be this year's Christian Watson. But from the Senior Bowl event, the smaller school guy that's going to get the pop, I think is going to be Grant Dubose out of Charlotte, 6'2", 200 pounds, like I said.
Yeah, I'm just reading these texts from my business partner Byron Lambert's at the Shrine game right now. I'm just trying to keep up with these names. Do we got Shrine Bowl breaking news? No. I was just sorry, man. I saw a bunch of texts from Byron. I wanted to make sure that there wasn't. It's just a bunch of shit about who he likes and stuff. But I'm sure we'll have content up about that pretty soon.
All right. So you said you haven't broke into Dubose. We'll talk about him next week. Let's finish this show out. We've been going for 50 whole freaking minutes already. I knew we were going to end up talking for a minute. Let's finish it out with our favorite guy my favorite guy. I don't know if he's your favorite. We'll find out right here. Oklahoma. I don't even know if you can say he's your favorite because you went to Oklahoma.
No,
Texas.
Fine.
Eric Gray, running back from Oklahoma, played for Tennessee for a couple years. Eric Gray, you want to start us off, Alex?
Oh yeah. I mean, he was a guy who's been on 2 of my Devy league rosters for now going into like the 3rd off season. I thought after his coming into his first year at Oklahoma, he would be one and done there, right? And on to the NFL. Eric Gray's good, man. He's a good player. I'm interested to first. I wanted to. Did I ask you what you had for Dontavion Wicks as far as his 40 projection?
I got 4.54 written down.
Okay. What do you have for Gray?
Let me find it. I have Gray at 4.55.
I think he's faster than that. I think
really?
That's one. Yeah, I think he's faster than that. I think he's faster than that. And I mean, you can see just he's a terrific zone runner. He plants his foot, he gets upfield, he accelerates. But for me, it's just it's the hands, right? I mean, you just get excited about a guy who I don't have his stats pulled up from last year as far as his number of receptions. I've just seen him live enough to know that he is a gifted hands catcher in a way that reminds me in a practice setting of a guy like we saw last year with Rachaad White. Oh God. So yeah, he had 33 catches last year. Tennessee, he had the 130 catch season. So we're talking about a guy who, he's been experienced in that part of the game. And we just know how in fantasy, how much more valuable a target is than even a guaranteed touch out of the backfield. He's got the requisite size to where he can be a true every down player if a team chooses to utilize him that way. There are fewer and fewer teams that are utilizing players that way, but he's definitely. Do you have him at 210? Do you think he's going to be 210, 215? Whatever, man. He is north of the. We call it at RosterWatch like the Trey Mason-Dixon line, right? It's like 207, right? If you're north of the Trey Mason line, the Devontae Freeman line, that kind of player, like 207 to 209, like you're fine as an every down contributor. So the fact that he can catch and the fact that he's a really good zone runner, to me, it's like I think coming out of this week, running backs are typically the hardest to evaluate at these deals. Much easier with the wide receivers, but I'm going to watch him in the inside run drills. I want to see how he looks in the inside run drills, going up into the teeth of these. This looks like a pretty good defensive line group that they have there. You'll probably know more about that than I will at this point, Cody. But going into the teeth of that thing, and also the other thing, of course, is just the wheel route stuff, all those drills. I want to watch him closely in those, see if he's as natural as I can remember seeing him in some of those practices. And he's the kind of guy that I think could maybe come out of this week with the highest sort of rookie draft ADP of any of them, just because of the position that he would project to play at the next level would be one that is, the one that is most beneficial to us in Dynasty, which is, pass catching running backs with the ability to possibly move into a feature role.
I love that. I love Eric Gray, and I love one of the guys you brought up, a name you said, the Trey Mason-Dixon line, but you also said the Devonta Freeman line. Devonta Freeman obviously comes in around that same size, and Devonta Freeman's actually the guy that I comped Eric Gray to. I think Eric Gray is a better receiving back, but I also think as far as expectations go, in Devonta Freeman had a top 5 season or two in fantasy. He never had a 200 carry season at Florida State, though he had 1,000 during that junior year. Eric Gray now has been in college, I think, he's been there for 4 years. He went to Tennessee for 2, Oklahoma for 2. I graded him out, and I knew the Devy stuff. Again, didn't watch tape from back then, but I knew of the Devy conversations. But coming in, I was like, I know I'm too high on this guy right now. Like, I come in at RB3 when I get through 25 evaluations, looking at everybody.
RB3 overall for you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
That's what but that's the same spot. So this is the thing. That's the same spot that Jamar was in 2 years ago. And it's the same spot that Rachaad White was in last year.
Huh.
So now 3rd straight year, I get one of these random dudes that just ends up popping right to the top of the list. And Eric Gray is that guy this year. So you can take that whichever way you want, but patient, fluid lower body, great center balance, quick twitch. I thought smooth receiver, as you mentioned, 30+ receptions, multiple seasons, few negatives on his profile. I thought he lacked the long speed. You said you think he's going to be a little faster than what I had written down at 4.55. I'd be excited to see that. I didn't see it a lot on tape. I said, I thought he gets to his point quickly. I think he's got great burst and acceleration, but not quite the acceleration, more burst than acceleration. But I just wasn't sure. I thought mid 4.5 was a good area. Agility and timing is a positive, but I think he's got an abundance of shimmy and shakes and spin. Just go. Quit moving around, quit jumping, quit hopping around. I think he does lack workhorse frame, like you mentioned. What does he come in at? 203, 207, 211? What is it going to be? I don't know if he can take 25+ touches a game. I don't think we can expect that. I don't think you're going to see him ever have over 300 touches in a season. Over the last 2 seasons, he had 330 total, I think was a number. He would benefit from having like a quicker number 2 guy next to him. So if you were going to, bring in somebody else in this class, a Tyjae Spears or Devon Achane, somebody that could, I think that's kind of what I came in with as an evaluation. You think he's going to be faster. That would obviously benefit that. But I do think he has the quick twitch ability, burst paired with that elite awareness. And I think he has a good set of skills. And that's why I have him up there. Number 3 overall in the class. I have him best comparable as far as a play style to Devonta Freeman with better hands.
Yeah, I like that, man. I like the Devonta Freeman thing. I mean, you hate comping these guys to you hate comping these guys to like super elite type of players, and Freeman's not really elite. Like, to me, I hate to just can I say my comp is like a Matt Forte light. I think it's kind of similar style, but that's just kind of my initial comp. But again, man, we got a whole week coming up where we're gonna have a ton of content from me and you and Trash Man and Matt Kelly, and we'll have it here on the Player Profiler feed. We'll have it on the RosterWatch feed. We'll have a ton of stuff for everybody this year here listening, and there's certainly going to be some stuff that pops up during the week that we're going to be able to go back and revisit and be able to kind of really shape up a whole lot of our initial takes.
All right, man. I appreciate you hanging out at RosterWatch on Twitter, Alex, do you have a bold take for us as we head into Mobile from one of these prospects?
Yeah, no. How about this? Just like I was saying, you need to stay tuned. Player Profiler, Roto Underworld Radio, RosterWatch podcast. We got couple Sirius XM shows. Hopefully, Cody, Matt, these guys will come hop on with us for that stuff. And just stay tuned, because my bold take is there's going to be a player that completely busts out of nowhere, dude. Just comes out like a nuclear missile that we haven't even talked about today.
Love it.